Carter McLean is a drummer I've followed for years online. When he walked past my booth at Wind Up last year in New York, I had to introduce myself. We quickly started talking drums and watches, and he even walked me over to the Fairer booth to introduce me to Paul, a fellow car enthusiast. I was thrilled when Carter agreed to come on the podcast, and here we talk more about all of the above as well as drumming technique. Carter shares how John Mayer helped him secure a very special watch and an incredible story of a letter he wrote himself at a young age. Full disclosure, I geeked out a bit on this one, and Carter's answers to my questions only substantiate why he's become one of my favorite drummers playing today. I mean, we even talk about the humidity levels in his studio. Even if you're not into drumming, please give him a follow because his video content is really wonderful, especially if you appreciate anyone who's insanely good at what they do. It truly is a pleasure to watch. All that and more in just a few seconds. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Mr. McLean, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to see you. I think last time we saw each other was at a watch fair.
Yeah, can you believe that was last October?
Yeah, that time is flying.
August, September, 9 months ago, almost 10.
Yeah, I would say it felt like 2 months ago.
Right. I would say the same. Maybe 3.
Using this quite a bit, by the way.
Oh, heck yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, it's Tuesday. What is a typical Tuesday for you?
Well, like today I got up fairly early with my wife goes to work. She gets up at like 6 and she's out the door by like 7:15. So I got up with her to say hi, make coffee. Then she split, let the dog out, fed him, came down here, changed all my guitar strings on my acoustic, recorded a Bill Frisell cover that I just posted on YouTube. Now I'm doing this with you. Then I'll probably have lunch after this, practice for maybe 40 minutes. And then around 4:30, I'll go drive to the train to take to Grand Central to go to Lion King for a 7 o'clock show.
Oh man, amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna geek out as I play the drums. I don't consider myself a drummer because I'm not in a band, nor do I have a gig. But I do kind of want to geek out with you over this stuff because I don't have a lot of people in my life I'm able to do this with. So selfishly, I want to ask you just like crazy questions. What is 40 minutes a typical practice time for you?
I don't have any typical routine at all. Some
Yeah.
days I won't play at all. Some days I'll come down and get, my, like this morning I typically try to play first thing in the morning because it's the most kind of like you're the least cloudy in a way from all of like the social media stuff and news, and you're kind of half asleep still, which is a great place to be because you're not playing stuff typically. I usually come up with fresh ideas first thing in the morning when I'm barely awake, and that happened actually this morning. So I could have sat there and worked on some different permutations of stuff, but I just was like, that was cool. I just kind of documented it, posted it on Instagram, and I know what it is and I can come back to it.
So how do you go about remembering the things that you think about? Do you write them down or do you just play them on the kit and it's just all just, hey, I did this rudiment or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically like breaking up double stroke roll into triplets between the ride cymbal, kick drum, and snare. And it was used as kind of like a connective fill kind of idea. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't know if I've actually done that way before. And if you've played an instrument for 35 years like I have, it's hard to come up with new stuff, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of shocking when you go, oh wow, I don't think I've done that. And then you can start dissecting that one little idea and arranging it in different ways on the drums, like orchestration, or you can displace it by a 16th note, or you can change the rate. I mean, there's a million ways you can change one simple idea, which is fun.
So to dive into the self-deprecation part of this conversation, ability is what prevents me from doing new things. So, yeah, I would love to be able to play at your level, obviously, but like in a way that like something new doesn't exist almost. Like that would be incredible. You're self-taught. This conversation's very much going to jump around.
That's fine.
Um,
That's how my brain works anyway.
okay, sweet. Yeah, I could almost like nickname this the ADD podcast. Like, um, at any rate, you're self-taught, I understand. So where does technique come in for you then? Like, do you absorb this through watching other drummers? Because there's like so many different ways to hold sticks. There's a natural way. I would almost say the natural way is like so individualistic. Like the way I grab a stick may be different than the way you grab a stick naturally, like inherently.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone's hands are shaped differently. Like I have big hands with like my thumb is like twice as long as most people's. Like, so when I pick up my drumstick, which I created a signature stick because I just couldn't find what I wanted with these other companies, and so that was great. So when I pick that up, that feels perfect for me.
Sure.
A lot of people, because I'm kind of, I guess, known more for like a lighter touch on the drums. And a lot of people pick it up and go, oh man, this is bigger than I thought. I thought you'd be playing like a little 7A or something.
Right.
But that's different. My hand feels perfect for my stick. But if somebody had a really small hand, it might feel too big for them. So that to me is all very unique, and how you hit. Some people play German grip, which is kind of palms facing down. There's like French timpani grip, which is like thumbs pointing up at the sky, and then there's American grip, which is kind of in the middle. And I kind of go between American and French. I never really play this way because it feels, in order for you to, if you drop your arms at your side and then just raise your forearms up from your elbows, my arms come up like I'm going to shake someone's hand naturally.
Sure. Yeah.
My hands don't come up like a zombie.
Right.
And the reason is because like you need to use muscles in your forearm to turn that over.
Right.
So I'm just trying to play as relaxed. Basically, when I'm sitting behind the kit, it's almost like I'm holding a magazine or like a book. That's kind of what hands are.
Right.
And that might not be comfortable for everybody, but for me, that's really comfy. I don't teach people and say, you have to do what I do. That's the last thing I do. I say, this is what I do for me. And as long as you're not hurting yourself and you can express yourself on the instrument, I don't care if you hold the sticks totally bizarre, double traditional grip. I don't care.
Right.
You sound good. You sound good.
Yeah, totally. So how is your stick different? You mentioned that.
The tip of it is more, I can show you, is more like I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah, I used to play a set. So I play 5Bs, which I think are
Thickness of this. It's a little thinner than this.
yeah, I like 5Bs personally, and I used to play this brand, and it's escaping me now, of course. And it's a triangular tip, and I believe they were Hickory. What was the name of that brand? Anyway, small, tiny. This was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And
Regal
it was
tip?
no. Is that the name of the brand or the style of stick?
That's the brand. There's like Vic Firth, Promark, Regal tip, Vader.
I don't think they're around anymore. Is the thing, and this was like their thing. It was like this, I guess, tip design or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at a lot of the old, most of my favorite drummers are jazz guys, and I looked at what their sticks looked like back in the 50s, and it was this shape,
Interesting.
but they were a lot smaller because back then you weren't playing with a rack of, guitar amps. It was like acoustic jazz. So you didn't need to have all this volume. So they were pretty small sticks. So I basically took that idea and beefed it up for modern playing.
So when you do yours are with ProMark, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so when you do a signature stick, could in theory, could I make a signature stick? Like is it something like I could customize a garment if I pay enough money for it, if I call up, Brunello Cucinelli and say, "Look, I want a bespoke suit." Or do they have to reach out to you? Or
No, I mean, I was a ProMark artist, right? So I was endorsing their sticks.
got
And
it.
I liked a lot of this stuff, but I said, hey, I have this idea for a stick that's not really on the market. I can't find it anywhere. Would you guys be open to designing this with me? And they were like, yeah, totally. We'd love to hear about it.
Sweet.
I was with another company before and I said the same thing and they were like, yeah, we have no interest in working with you. Like I was one of their artists, but they did not want to do anything outside of their, standard cookie cutter design. And so I left and said, I asked this other company, Promark, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. Like, we did 4 different variations of the stick before I settled on this one. And it's
Yeah.
become one of the top selling signature sticks.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you want to share this information or not. Feel free to say no, but like, do you get like a royalty from that, or like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a pretty standard contract. It's like every pair that they sell, I get a percentage of the sales.
Oh, that's great.
And I mean, for me, I was just happy. I didn't design it to like, it's not like I'm going to buy a car from the royalties. But I mean, I wish I could, but
Right.
it was really just for me to have something that I could take to a Charlie Hunter gig and play really quiet, and then also use that same pair at Lion King
Right.
where I'm hitting really hard. So I just wanted one stick that I could do all of the different things with.
So you said you're kind of known for your lighter touch on the drums. When you go play Lion King hard, is are you more exhausted, or is it like what's the feeling after a gig when you go to a Charlie Hunter gig? Because I mean, I'm assuming you're also playing fast with Charlie, no?
No, a lot of the time with Charlie, it's super slow,
Oh,
like
okay.
slow blues stuff, like 1, 2,
Oh, wow.
3,
Okay.
4. So there's like these long pauses. Lion King is, it's like a pop show. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
Elton John music with like African influence, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of kind of like Peter Gabriel, almost like Elton John kind of stuff, but with more of like an African groove. Because I play drum set on the show and a little bit of hand drums, but then there's 4 other percussionists.
Right.
So it's a pretty big sound for the percussion section,
Yeah.
which is cool. It just lets me lay into a groove, and then everyone else can play, djembe and kungas and stuff on top of it, which is cool.
Yeah, totally. I've seen the show off Broadway in Raleigh, but that was like 20 years ago. It
It was
was
so
Oh,
so
on
long
the
long ago.
ago.
tour, yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. Do you tour at all, or you only play the Broadway shows?
No, I just do it like if you have the chair at home, you can't go, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, you basically have to go live in a hotel for 4 weeks at a time in like Cincinnati or wherever, and that's fine. But it's
Yeah,
if I'm going to be out on tour, I want to go out with like an artist that I really want to be out on the road with.
sure. Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I guess I don't even know what the comparison would be, Broadway to off Broadway, but we don't have to talk about that. It's almost like I don't know, AAA team versus the majors. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, the pay, I'll tell you, the pay is about half when you go out on the road.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like financially, I wouldn't do it,
Right, right.
you know. And
Gotcha.
and I couldn't see my wife or my dog or be in my studio or any of
Yeah.
that. So that's the thing. People are like, "Man, you should be out touring more," and I'm like, "Yeah, you'd be surprised how much people are paying to go out on the road. It's not what you think."
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's enough motivation to stay home even without the money, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be someone that I really, really want to play with, and the money would have to be there. I
Right.
don't want to go out on the road and bust my ass and lose money.
Yeah. Right.
That's.
Right. So I understand you were born in San Francisco, moved to Connecticut. How old were you when that happened, and what provoked that move?
I was like 8 months old, so I don't
Oh,
remember San Francisco at all. Like I
got it.
basically remember growing up in the same house my entire life, and then I went off to college in Colorado.
Right.
Um, yeah, my folks moved back. I mean, my folks were from the East Coast, and they wanted to change it up. My brother was 2 years older. He was already born. He was born in Norwalk, and so then they moved to San Francisco to just to check it out.
Oh, cool.
And they liked it. And I've been back and played, the Boom Boom Room and stuff. And I mean, San
Yeah.
Francisco is amazing. But I'm deep down very much an East Coaster.
Yeah. What did your folks do for work?
My dad was a stockbroker, and my mom was an interior designer.
God, that's like almost identical to my parents. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, that's funny. So you went to CU Boulder. How much work was actually getting done?
Well, I dropped out after a year.
Okay.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, when I was in class, I was doing my work and getting good grades. I basically knew this is crazy. So I remember when I was in middle school, when I was in sixth grade, no, it was eighth grade. One of the assignments was to write yourself a letter when you're a senior in high school
Right.
and tell yourself like what you're going to be doing in those, like in 4 years from now, what are you going to be doing? And it's crazy how dialed in I had my like path set up at that in eighth grade. So I'd been playing drums for 3 years at that point. I was fully addicted to it, practicing all day long to like Rush records, Zeppelin records, Chick Corea records, whatever I could get.
Sick.
Uh, the letter said basically the gist of the letter was, so you're graduating high school, you're going to go to school somewhere in Colorado. And then after you get done with college, you're going to move back to New York City and become a professional musician. That was literally like what the letter said.
Wow.
Because I knew I wanted to go somewhere else besides living in the city and this little chunk of the world for my whole
Right.
life.
Right.
I was a big climber and a big tele skier. So I went to Colorado to basically ski and climb and get that out of my system.
Do you think drumming helps your telemark or vice versa? Because that's a tricky sport. Like not people. A lot of people don't understand how difficult telemarking is.
Yeah, I don't know. They're very separate things to me. I think the tempo of like turning was like very natural for me, but I
Yeah.
started like downhill skiing when I was 3. So I was
Okay.
very comfortable and I basically got bored on downhill skis. I could go in the freestyle park at Breck and I would just bomb off of stuff. And finally a buddy of mine was like, "Man, you should try telemarking. I think it would challenge you."
Yeah.
So I took downhill Solomon Extreme skis and mounted telly bindings on them. And I started, it took me like 2 days. And then when I started to figure out my balance and everything, I was hooked. I sold all my downhill gear the next day, got all new telly gear. And I was like bombing in the Breckenridge Freestyle Park on telly skis.
What? That's insane.
So fun. I actually kept snapping telemark skis. And I was working at this company, Eastern Mountain Sports, at the
Oh
time.
yeah. Yeah.
And I kept snapping these like I forget the name of the company, and they said, "Look, dude, you should just mount literally like heavy duty downhill skis with telly bindings." And when I did that, I was like, "This is my shit. This is so fun."
That's sick. Was anybody else doing that with you?
No,
Like,
not a lot of people. Most of the telemarketers were like doing backcountry stuff and hiking,
yeah.
and I was like, "Man, I just want to be in the park." Um, so I have pictures somewhere of me flying off of some of these, jumps they used to build.
With your heels detached?
The back of my skis kind of like hanging.
Is sagging?
It was fun.
Wow.
Once I got into the music program and I made like the top jazz ensemble and like the graduate jazz combo as a freshman. And I already had endorsements with like a couple drum companies and a cymbal like some of the bigger companies already.
Wow.
I got when I was in high school. So I was kind of already on my way to doing stuff. And I kept seeing like how much the bills were for going to school. And I'm like, this is a waste of my mom's money. Like I don't want to do this.
Right.
So I dropped out. I didn't get along with a lot of my teachers and like, I don't know. The jazz ensembles were really fun to play in because we were actually playing some pretty badass music.
Sweet.
But I left and I stayed in Colorado for two and a half, 3 more years. And my brother's a musician. He just graduated Boston College. And so I said, "Man, why don't you move out here and we'll just play?" So he was like, "Great." Drove out with his keyboard player buddy and we started a band called One Flight Up. And we were like one of the main bands in Colorado at that time. We opened up for like Maceo Parker and Schofield and like anybody that was coming through town, we would be like the opener.
Now, what was the genre you were playing then?
We would cover like some Steely Dan stuff. Most of it was all original, so
Oh,
definitely
cool.
like more groove based stuff, but definitely like some extended guitar solos and long keyboard solos. I mean, it was good. Everybody was like very competent musicians, like they could play a shitload of stuff, but didn't have the maturity yet to go like, okay, let's like take our time and not just like blow every chop we have in the first tune.
Right.
And that's where I met Charlie Hunter. We opened up for Charlie like 3 or 4 times, and that's where I got to know him. And I've been a fan of his since his first record. And I remember he came up to me and he was just like, "Man, you sound really good." He's like, "I like your feel and everything, but," he goes, "quit playing all that nonsense." He's like, "Just pare it down." And he kind of like walked off, and I was like, "Fuck, that was kind of brutal."
Yeah. It's what the notes you don't play.
Yeah, but he was totally right. He's like, "Look, man, you have great technique or whatever, but like, take it easy."
Yeah.
That was, and he was right. I told him that after we started playing together. I was like, "Do you remember telling me that?" He goes, "I didn't say that." I was like, "Yeah, you did."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Okay, so then what took you from Colorado back? Because you worked at the legendary Manny's Music.
Yeah, yeah.
I've bought stuff there before, like a long time ago.
Oh yeah, they closed like kind of right after 9/11, like a few years after that all happened. That whole street just started to disappear from music stuff into like, condos.
Right.
It's sad because that was a really big institution for New York City. I mean, that whole street was like incredible guitar stores, horn stores, I mean,
Yeah.
shops. It was really cool. Um, yeah, so I left Colorado. I got kind of fed up with just like, I felt like a big fish in a very small pond. And in the back of my head, I was like, look, if I'm going to really try to do this music thing, I got to move to New York and just get my ass handed to me. That's what I need.
Right.
So I basically packed up all my stuff, drove back to Connecticut to my mom's, dropped everything off. That was in May of 2001. And then September, I set up a job at Manny's before I even got there. I said, "Hey, are you guys hiring? I'm kind of in the drum industry already, but I need a day job when I moved to the city." So I just basically worked there to practice, because I couldn't play drums in my apartment.
Right. Right.
And I actually met a lot of musicians through just being at that store playing. I met this guy Dennis Davis who used to play with Stevie Wonder, and he played on like Let's Dance by David Bowie. I mean, like really heavy duty guy. And he invited me to just he heard me play for 5 seconds. He goes, "Man, you shouldn't be working here. You should be playing out. You should come up and sit in. I'm playing with Roy Ayers in Harlem tonight. You should come up and sit in." I was like, "Oh shit."
Whoa. So that very night you did it.
Yeah. I go, "What time is the gig?" And he goes, "It starts at 1 a.m."
Sick.
And I looked at him. I go, "Is that safe for me to go to?"
Yeah, Harlem. Yeah.
And he's like, "You'll be fine, man. Just show up. You'll be cool." I was like, "Okay."
Oh my God.
So yeah, stuff like that's why I got a job at that store because I knew I would meet people through there.
Right, sure. Well, so like this might be a stupid question, but like how important or like what does your network mean to you? Like given the people you know now and are connected with.
Well, I mean, I don't even look at it like a network. It's just like most of these people have all become really good friends.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Like being a musician is it's a different thing than like having colleagues at work. Like
Right.
you're communicating on a much like more personal level than just
Yeah.
talking about whatever finance or strategy for growth for your business or whatever. It's more like, do we get along? Can we talk? Okay,
Right.
cool. Let's pick up our instruments and talk.
Right, right. And are you speaking the same language? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, when you see like a duo gig with me and Charlie, that's like the most intimate thing just watching two people have a conversation. And
Yeah.
it can get really wild and super out left field, or it could be really simple and heartfelt and very basic.
Well, I know like John Mayer has stated that he's a guitarist that likes to play with a drummer. Um, have you ever played with John?
I haven't. I mean, we've chatted a bunch. He's actually helped me get a couple watches that I was trying to track down. I was
That's
trying to track
hilarious.
down a watch for the 25th anniversary of Lion King.
Right.
I wanted to get something. I mean, I'm actually an ambassador with Fairer, and they just actually sent me this beautiful. It's almost got like a Daytona vibe.
Yeah. Is that bezel pale blue or is that just the light?
Yeah. No, it's a pale blue. It's beautiful, and the dial is bronze.
That looks so good. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, they just released it like 2 weeks ago. I just got it like 5 days ago.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they had it at Wind Up this past weekend in Chicago, which unfortunately I was unable to attend.
They did. But like John and I basically, I met John through Charlie because
Sure.
John's a huge fan of Charlie. And then when I started playing with Charlie, somebody was like, "Hey, did you know John Mayer's following you now?" And I was like, "No." So I think I just messaged him and said, "Hey, man, we grew up in the same area, like at the
Yeah.
same time. Like he grew up in Fairfield and I grew up in New Canaan, and like we had another friend that I grew up with, Eric Krasno, who's a great guitar player.
Oh yeah, yeah. Great podcast too.
Yeah, there was a lot of good guitar players in this area at the time. My brother, all these people. So, um, yeah, long story short, I messaged John because I was trying to get a GMT Batman,
Sure.
and they're impossible to get. So I was looking at a couple other things to treat myself to, and I said, out of these other ones, which do you think is a good move? I like all of them. And he said, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to get a Batman, but they're impossible to get. And he was like, oh, hold on a second. And basically gave me 5 minutes and then came back and said, I can get you one. Call this guy. He's my personal guy. And literally bought one the next day.
Holy smokes.
The
That's
crazy
amazing.
thing about that is the crown lines up perfectly when it's tight. It's a perfectly vertical crown, which is really rare.
Yes.
And in the serial number that they etch into the bottom has my initials. It starts with CM and then it's got a number.
No way. That's cool.
I called the guy who hooked me up with this situation at Rolex, and he was just like, I did not plan that. That is crazy that your initials are in that. He's like, that's your watch.
Dude, that's amazing.
So I don't really talk with him about, we don't talk a lot. I mean, I consider him an acquaintance,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but like, I don't really want to bug him about music. And honestly, like he knows so much about watches. It's like kind of fun to just like go like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I've shown him a bunch of the Ferrer stuff, and he's like, man, they're really doing some cool designs.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can't wait to check that out, the one on your wrist.
This is going to be on my wrist all summer.
So, when you're playing, how do you marry the group effort and kind of like your individual chops? Like, how do you find that sort of synergy between doing what you want to do and doing what's needed?
I mean, like in a band situation.
Yes.
I mean, I'm kind of the first one to go like, okay, like this gig on Friday, we're playing. It's our first time playing together out on a gig, and we're just playing at a local brewery in town called Nod Hill.
Cool.
And it's all groove stuff. It's like Grant Green stuff, some original stuff. There's no
Sweet.
singer. It's like B3 Hammond organ, guitar, drums. That's it. That stuff is just straight pocket, just playing the right beat and let that speak. If you overplay in those situations, it just sounds like four people talking over each other, and you can't really enjoy the conversation.
Right.
You know.
Do you play at Blue Note?
No, I've played there before, but we're not playing there.
Okay. Um, I would love to get a record. Is somebody going to record that show?
I might videotape it and post it just because a lot of people, it's like a local gig here. So a lot of people can't, come out from wherever.
Right, right.
So I'll probably just videotape it and maybe try to get a board mix and then, splice it together and post it so it sounds good.
I'm a big Grant Green fan, so like I would love to hear that. I bet that's going
Oh
to be
yeah,
really
we're
cool.
playing. I forget which Grant Green tunes. We've got like where is it? The playlist here is like well, we're doing Ain't It Funky Now, Flood in Franklin Park, Fareed. Those are Grant Green tunes.
Sweet.
We're doing Ease Back. We're doing Sookie Sookie, The Cantaloupe Woman.
Nice.
We're doing some Meters tunes, Horace Silver, Lou Donaldson, Schofield. So that's kind of what if you like Grant Green, you'll definitely dig the group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hope that's recorded then. Um, was there? This is kind of a foregone conclusion type of question, but was there any drummer specifically that made you want to start drumming to begin with?
It's weird. Like I've thought about this a million times because I get asked like, "How did you start?" or "What made
Right.
you start?" And I'm like, I remember very vividly hearing this Bruce Springsteen song. I think it was like in off of like the Born in the USA album.
So is Max?
Yeah, but like I didn't know anything. I just on that recording, I could hear the hi-hat, snare drum, and bass drum. Like for whatever reason, I could hear those three things, and I'm like, oh, that's what makes a drum beat. Like boom, chick, tss, 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 you know.
Right.
For whatever reason, I set up like a phone book and like a pillow, and then I knew from watching MTV because they actually played videos. That's what they did back then.
Right.
I remember seeing what a drummer looked like and what a drum set looked like, and everybody kind of had a similar set, you know, setup at least. And I kind of just put it together in my head, and I was like, "This is a beat." And I remember playing it along to this song and going like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
Wow.
And then I said, "I think I want to play drums." My mom was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, that's loud.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Um, and she was really cool. I mowed lawns all summer, and she got me like a really basic kit. And then I just started playing to like Guns N' Roses. Their first album had just come out, and kind of just rock stuff because it was easy to hear. And once you
Yeah.
learn rock beat, you could kind of play to any rock tune. Then I got into like Living Color and Rush, and like I went through a massive Led Zeppelin phase, and still John Bonham is still probably one of my favorite drummers ever.
Yeah, totally.
And then I kind of got into jazz very quickly, like kind of fusion stuff with like Dennis Chambers and Vinnie Colaiuta and Peter Erskine and all of those kind of players. Um, and then I just started trying to figure out what they were playing because it was so difficult and dense. That's where I think I learned technique because there's only certain ways you can go ding 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 on a cymbal.
Right.
You can't muscle it out. You got to use your wrist and your fingers and like start to learn how to manipulate a stick. Um, and I think if you spend enough time on an instrument, whatever it is, guitar, keyboards, you know, string instrument, whatever, your body will figure out how it's kind of supposed to do it, or you won't really be able to do it, you know, comfortably.
You know, it's interesting. I've based on those bands and references, you know, it seems like you went from rock drumming that incorporated very technical guitar playing, and then it sort of morphed by way of Led Zeppelin into more technical drumming based on the genre, right? Like it's kind of interesting to see that like the drums may have been a little easier over here, but Slash was shredding, and then you have like John Bonham and Jimmy Page both shredding, and then you go over to these drummers over here that are shredding, right? Like it's
Yeah, like there's just no way I could comprehend what those guys were doing at a young age. So like when you hear boom, boom, chack, you're like, oh, okay, I get
right.
that. But when you hear stuff and they're playing in 7 and 13 and everything's moving and there's hits everywhere and Chick Corea's just fucking ripping, it's like I don't even know how to digest this, let alone listen to it.
Right, right.
But
Yeah, that's
it was like intriguing to me because it was challenging. Whereas like playing to a Guns N' Roses album just did not seem challenging. It was really fun, and it was a great way to learn how to like just play the drums.
right.
Then it became more like, oh, this is like a not a science, but like this is a real art form that like you have to really study to get even scratch the surface on.
Yeah, I got you know, I was inspired by very much like kind of rock type of stuff, but also sort of fusion. Like Carter Beauford was like the main guy that like really inspired me to pick up sticks, but then like at the time it was like Travis Barker who was, you know, obviously playing 180 beats per minute or whatever, like just so fast. What do you have advice on how to get faster?
I mean, I do. I just think it's pointless, really. I mean, I could sit down and say, this is how you manipulate the stick with your fingers, and you know, you use, you know, control it, use like the bounce with your wrist and molar technique and all these different things. But like at the end of the day, you're really only using that fast, whatever, fifth gear for like 0.001% of a tune. You know,
Mm.
it might be for a big fill. There's like a there's a Dave Matthews tune that I remember everybody was like loving this fill. I forget the name of the tune, but he's literally playing like around the toms going back and forth, and it's this like big build up in this tune. And people were like, "Man, I can't believe you can play that as fast as he can play it. That's crazy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess it's crazy, but
Say Goodbye.
I couldn't tell you the name of the tune. It was like early on in their career.
Yeah, this is their second record.
Yeah, it might have been that one. And I think Carter Beauford's amazing. I mean, he's one of the few dudes who can kind of like play a lot of shit and it feels great with what's happening because the way Dave and Carter play together just seems to just lock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the bass player kind of stays out of the way. It seems like that band, that Dave Matthews Band, kind of lets Carter and Dave kind of do their thing. I mean, the coolest shit to listen to is just stuff that makes you want to dance or bob your head or like, oh man, that bass line or oh, that groove is so good.
Yeah, totally.
The other stuff is like Red Bull. It's like, yeah, it's
Right.
fun. It's like 2 seconds, but like you're not gonna drink that all day.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. That's really funny. Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I really did appreciate about Dave Matthews Band, like, in the mid late 90s, early 2000s, well, even still today, really, their opening acts that they would draw were great because it would really offer you a totally different vibe usually. And it was also very worldly. Like maybe that's coming from Dave having grown up in Africa, perhaps. I don't know. But um, yeah, I mean, as a result, I've been a huge Dave Matthews Band fan. Also, I grew up in North Carolina. So as you can imagine, like
Oh yeah.
everybody our age in North Carolina is like a Dave Matthews Band fan, or you are absolutely anti because of how popular they were, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of haters. It's like, look, they're a good
Tons.
band, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you might not like them, but you can't hate on them.
Yeah, I am aching to find the one professional musician that thinks the musicianship within the band sucks because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, try
Like,
to learn a couple of those Dave Matthews guitar parts. They're hard.
yeah, and Stefan Lassard, their bassist, is like he was like a prodigy when they started.
Really young, I think, when they start.
Yeah, he was like 16 or 17. They had to sneak him into bars and stuff. It was really funny. But I remember when Jeff joined the band because I was actually at the tour when their saxophonist passed away, Leroy Moore.
Oh wow.
And it was 2008. And they got Jeff on stage the night of him passing. And they ended up playing a show anyway. And you could hear a pin drop in the Staples Center. Like it was crazy. I'll never forget that show. Like it was crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, I remember when that happened. And I guess Bela and those guys used to open for Dave a lot.
A lot.
They all knew each other.
Yeah, I remember I recorded back in the days where play and record would get hit at the same time. Um, I think it was in 98, maybe. I think Victor Wooten stood in on a few tracks in Chicago that they did. And they were like broadcasting this show on the radio. And I was like, this is sick. Like I'm listening to this like I'm in the United Center right now. This is amazing. And Victor, obviously, what more can you say about him? Like he's a beast.
Yeah, I got to
Um,
play with him once when we were in Colorado. That was really fun because I had known them for a while. And Victor was doing his own tour with this drummer, JD Blair, who was out with Shania Twain at the time playing like stadiums.
cool.
Was like one of the funkiest drummers. And so I was hanging with those guys that afternoon. We went to get lunch and stuff and hang, and I was talking with JD. And then, I went to the show at the Fox Theater,
Yeah.
packed. All my friends are there. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see JD and Vic play. This is going to be dope. And then, like, a third of the way into the show, Victor was like, hey, I'd like to bring up a friend of mine to play. And I was like, oh, cool. Who's he going to bring up?
No way.
I was excited to see someone else, play. And they're like, we'd like to bring Carter McLean up. And I was like, oh my God, my heart just like sank. I was so nervous.
I bet. Oh my God.
And JD just handed me the sticks with this big smile. And he goes, have fun, man. And he just took off. And the drum set was an 18-inch kick, a piccolo snare, and a flat ride, and a set of like 12-inch hi-hats. And that was it.
Wow.
And then Vic comes over and he's like, all right, man, what do you want to play? And I just go, I'll follow you, man. So we did like a 30-minute Stevie Wonder medley.
Holy shit.
It was so fun. And I remember saying, because I knew they taped every show on DAT, and I went to the sound engineer, Kurt Story, who was their traveling sound engineer. I said, dude, I will send you DAT tape. Can you please copy the show for me? I would like love to have a copy of this because I remember feeling like this feels really good, and I could tell Vic was digging it, and JD was like, "Man, sounds great." And I sent him a DAT tape, and I never got the show.
Oh no.
So I know there's a DAT tape sitting in a box somewhere that's got that audio on it. I wish I could find it.
Oh my God, man. That's heartbreaking. Um, Crap.
Yeah, Vic's dangerous, man. His pocket is absolutely insane.
So when did you know you wanted to pursue drums as a profession, though?
Pretty young. I mean, I was playing drums when I was like whatever 9 or 10, and then my first concert was the Steel Wheels tour, 88 or 89. So like right when I was kind of starting, and my dad was like, "All right, if we're gonna go to your first concert, we're gonna go to a serious show, and I'm gonna get legit seats." My dad was like, "If we're gonna do something, we're gonna fucking blow it out."
Love it.
So the Stones played, I think it was Mets Stadium.
Oh my God.
We had second row seats. Yeah, and I was right in front of the side of the stage where Keith Richards was, so kind of on the right side where Keith is. And Living Color just put out Vivid, that huge album,
Yeah.
opened the show. So the first band I ever saw live technically was Living Color, playing with Cult of
Unbelievable.
Personality and all that
Yeah.
shit. They
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
out in
Yeah.
the stadium and went do that do do that do that do do that, and I was like, oh, just got chills thinking about it. I remember looking at that going, this is fucking insane. And then the Stones came out and played and the fireworks went off, and I was like, if that's a job,
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
Right. Right.
But that was kind of the when I said to myself, like, this is what I'm doing. Like, this seems like a lot of fun.
Well, those are two incredible bands to pull from. And I think, Living Color to this day is still a sleeper. Like, I don't know.
That
Like,
first album is so sick.
it's unbelievable. I listen to the Cult of Personality at least once a month. Like, it's on a playlist I have, and it's just like
Oh,
usually,
nice.
usually at the gym or if I'm driving.
Corey
Um,
Glover can sing his face off. Vernon
yeah,
Reid is like one of the best rock guitar players I think ever.
Shredder, like just unbelievable. Like, it's so good.
Yeah,
It's
that
so
band.
good.
I mean, Will Calhoun is just a beast on
Yeah,
drums.
yeah.
Especially at that time, he was like, he was probably like 25, maybe, and just fucking killing.
I just want to know how big that floor tom is. Like, it must be
I
huge.
remember his kit. It was 10, 12, 13, 16,
Okay.
22, and it was a Pearl CZX series. And it
What
was
was
like a
your
bird's eye maple fade kind of drum kit. They were beautiful drums. I still think they're cool.
What was your first kit?
It was made by Pearl, but it was so cheap there was no like series. It just said
Okay.
Pearl, and it was probably from like the mid '70s.
Oh, cool.
And it was a bass drum, a tom, and a snare, and a hi hat. I had no other cymbals, um, and I kind of liked it actually. For playing rock stuff, it's really all you need.
Yeah.
And then I got a Pearl export kit. I was a Pearl guy.
That was my first kit.
An export.
Export Select. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean those were like they probably sold a billion of those drum sets. I
Nice.
got a Pearl BLX kit because I was obsessed with Manu Katché in this Peter Gabriel Secret World Live video, and he had
Cool.
a blue Yamaha kit. But I was like, oh well, Pearl makes a blue kit, so I want to do that. So that was a nice kit. That was a Birch BLX kit. That was 10, 12, 13, 16, 22 with a piccolo snare with like a drum rack and everything. And I
Wow.
played that kit like a ton until I went off to college. And then I got an endorsement with Drum Workshop.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sold. I wish I kept that blue kit just to have. Um,
So now you're more of a Ludwig guy, no?
yeah, full Ludwig. I mean, every
Yeah.
drum in this room is Ludwig.
Now, what's that relationship been like over the years, and how long has it been going on?
They're amazing. I switched to Ludwig in 2019, I think. Something like that. I think it's been 4 years, 5 years. Um, I think it's like 4.5 years. They're great. I mean, I've always liked Ludwig because they were like, John Bonham, Ringo, like, Ginger Baker, everybody was playing Ludwig. And
Sure.
they've been around, I think, 1909 or something. It's like the first patent snare they made. And I have a drum from like 1912 from them,
Wow.
steel snare in there, and it sounds awesome. I met this guy Uli Salazar, who's like the artist relations guy for Ludwig, and I always loved Ludwig stuff. And one day I was like, "Hey, would you be interested? I'm looking at joining up with a bigger company." I was working with a guy who ended up being kind of a lunatic that I left working with because I heard a lot of rumors about him, and then a lot of the stuff I found out was kind of true, and I was like, "Oh, I can't be associated," and so I split um, and joined up with Ludwig, and those guys have been real, like super straight shooters, no nonsense. All of their drums sound incredible. They totally support me when I go do clinics. They're just, they're very cool, and there's everything they say is real. There's no, sneaky stuff going on. It's like they're just very good people, and their drums sound amazing.
That maple kit that you have, that, or at least the oh God. Yeah. Yep.
They're, I mean, that's like a new kit they just made that's gorgeous sounding, and then this is a vintage kit I just got from 1967. That's like I've been looking for that finish for probably over 10 years.
Yeah, that's sort of the walnut brown is like, I mean, my favorite wood in the planet is walnut. And so when you got those drums, I was like, I think I hit you up the day you like announced them or whatever. And I was like, I have to have this kit as my next kit when I buy another kit. Like, oh my
They
God.
Yeah,
are beautiful. I don't know if
they're
they have any more
gorgeous.
of that veneer.
Okay.
It because I ordered that kit and they said we might have enough for like one or two more sets. Like you got one of the last kits we're making with it because they just ran out. It's like a really old. It's called fumed eucalyptus, and it's like a really old batch of veneer, and they just don't
Wow.
have it.
Well, maybe when my time comes, they'll find some more because this is years out from now. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, they also, I mean, they have all sorts of different exotic finishes that are just stunning.
right. Okay. So you mentioned you play in the Lion King production. What is that audition process like?
Uh, it's not really an audition. I mean, I started subbing on that show really shortly after I moved to New York
Oh, wow.
with this guy Melvin Sparks for a minute and did little tours with some like blues bands and stuff. But I mean, even when I was with Melvin, I started learning the book to sub for the original drummer at the show. And basically, I got a call when I was working at Manny's. Somebody saw me play and they're like, "Hey, we're doing an off-Broadway show. Would you be interested in auditioning for it?" And I didn't know anything about Broadway. It was not on my radar.
Sure.
I wanted to play with like Peter Gabriel or Sting or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was with DW Drums, and they were like, "Hey, there's this guy who plays at Lion King. If you want, he's a DW artist. He'd be a good guy to network with if you have any questions about anything in the city." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I didn't have any real reason to call him until I got this audition call for a Broadway show, and I just called him to say, "Hey, I got a call to do this." I think I just emailed him and said, "Is this money correct for this kind of thing? I don't know how it is in the city. And so he basically said, "Yeah, that dough is totally legit. That's what it should be." And he said, "If that show doesn't work out, I'm looking for a new sub for Lion King if you want to come watch the show." And I was just like, "Okay, that's cool." I mean, I didn't think much of it. I was like, "All right, well, I mean, I'm doing this off Broadway thing." But while that was rehearsing for the off Broadway show, 9/11 happened
Oh, wow.
and it shut everything down, right? So after that, like, happened, I didn't hear anything from that crew at all. And so I called the guy at Lion King and basically said, "Hey, this other thing is just not happening after 9/11, and if you want me to come up, I'd love to check out the book." So I sat in the room with him, watched him play, and was just like, "Okay, this is cool. Like the drum parts are cool. It's not like doop that doop that doop that doop that like most what I think of as like a Broadway show."
Right.
And he was like, "Can you play this stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, technically, but like I need a minute to like put all of these things together because it's conducted. A lot of it's not with a click. A lot of it's like you really have to follow the conducting, and it's just a lot of different things, moving parts that you got to put together." So I was like, "Give me a month or two, and I'll shed it and come in." and play for you. So I think it was like a month and a half. I was out touring with this guy Melvin Sparks at the time, which was like a soul jazz gig. We were touring with like Fred Wesley from James Brown's band and like Bernie Worrell from like Parliament Funkadelic and then Talking Heads. So it couldn't have been more opposite than playing a Broadway show.
Right.
It was,
Right.
so it was very strange to go in, and I didn't realize the level of detail they need on a Broadway show. It's like, even if you're playing the notes right, something might not be the right accent on the E of three, and they're like, yeah, you can't do the gig, sorry. I mean, it's really, really microscopic. So I basically went in, played a couple things. He said, yeah, this groove is not right. He literally said something like, yeah, the accent on the E of three is not loud enough, like you're not ready. And I was like, whoa, okay. Let me go over this with a fine tooth comb. Give me a week and I'll come back and I will fucking nail this to the wall. And so I came back, did it, and he was like, all right, sounds okay. I'll let you play the show Thursday.
Wow.
And that's how you audition. There's no like, oh, I'm going to get in there with the orchestra and run the whole show. Like, nobody has time for that.
Sure.
You go in Thursday, the lights go down, and you play the show. And you either do an okay job or you get fired.
Wow. And you've been there for 24 years?
2 years.
22 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Which is
man.
crazy. I mean, it's been like half of my life I've spent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it speaks to your consistency as well, like ability, I mean. That's great.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I also just like having like a little bit of a routine. Like I've toured around and that's really fun to see the world and stuff, but like there's something that's nice about sleeping in your own bed and like actually having like a steady thing. Like being a musician's not easy, you know.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't just get your yearly salary and you just clock in and out and do your job. It's like you got to hustle every month to get work. And having a show that's been running for 25 years is a real, gift. I don't take it for granted. I really don't. People are like, "Aren't you sick of doing that gig?" And I'm like, am I excited to go play Hakuna Matata for the like 5,000th time? Maybe not, but I'm excited to have a job.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I have a pension, I have health care. It's a great paying gig. I mean, it pays more like than probably most big touring acts, just because it's
Yeah.
consistent. Most big touring gigs, you're out for whatever, 4, 5, 6 months, and then you don't do shit for like 2 years.
Wow. A pension's very hard to come by, even with a 9 to 5 office job.
Yeah, and I mean, I know what my pension is after 22 years already, and I'm like, man, even if I get another 10 years in, it's gonna be sweet when I retire.
That's sick. Yeah, no, that's amazing. What was the last concert you attended as like a fan, an audience member?
Oh man, this is funny actually. Well, the last two shows I went to see the Killers.
I was just listening to them on the way in here.
Oh really? That's fun. They're great. Ronnie Vanucci, the drummer, is a buddy of mine.
Oh, sick.
And so I went and saw them up in like Mohegan Sun Arena or something. Um, and he's such a fun dude. He's like such a great hang, and he's such a badass drummer in that
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
And they put on an incredible show.
Yeah, I've never seen them honestly, but "Smile Like You Mean It" was the last song I heard before recording this. So
And they have so many amazing songs. Like when you see
Yeah.
them live, you're like, holy shit, I forgot they have all of these tunes.
right, right.
They know how to write some pop hits, man. I mean, they're great. And Ronnie, if you listen to the drum grooves, they're really interesting parts.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays, I mean, that show was like over 2 hours, and he is beating the shit out of the drums for the whole time, like killing it. And then another buddy of mine, Brooks Wackerman, plays in this band, this heavy band called Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I went and saw them at the Garden a couple weeks ago because I know Brooks, but I don't know that band.
Right.
We became friends just through whatever Instagram drum geek out, session. And Brooks is like a genius drummer as well. He's like Ronnie. He can just play anything.
So if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they just came out with a new album, right? Like I don't know their music very well either, but the artwork for their album was done by Wes Lang, who's an artist and also fellow watch geek.
No way.
Yeah, so their album art cover, Wes Lang is a very famous artist, and He's huge into Grand Seiko.
Oh, I've got a Grand Seiko upstairs that I love.
Yeah, so check him out. He does like a lot of like skulls and sort of kind of like dark sort of
That makes
vibe.
sense for that band.
I mean, not unlike your T-shirt. Although, is that Ringo?
Yeah, it's Ringo, kind of
Okay, yeah.
Game of Thrones stance.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's cool. Um, that's really funny. You know, looking at your studio, you built it, I believe, either yourself or had it built, I guess, and you've got such great acoustics in there. I'm dying to know though, because you are in the Northeast, do you keep a dehumidifier in there? Like, how do you take care of the space?
It's weird. Well, I mean, I have an HVAC system in here.
Okay.
It keeps it. It's funny because this wall here is a solid concrete wall, and behind that is earth. Because like basically, this was a garage, and then the main floor is upstairs, and it's like a partial in and out. You know, half
Yeah.
the house is that way, and then this is earth, and then the front door is up there.
Sure.
So that being kind of underground partially keeps this room, even if I don't have the air on in here. In the winter, it stays
Yeah.
warm. And in the summer, it stays kind of cool because of all that earth on the other side of that wall.
Sure.
So I've never had to regulate this room other than just like if it's like it's been pretty humid out here the last couple weeks, like, you know, high 80s, 90s, and pretty sticky outside. It's super comfortable in here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's dope. And in the winter, it's super cozy in here because all this stuff is soundproofing and it's basically insulated.
What was your first watch?
Oh man, that's a good question. First watch was probably like a Swatch watch, I'm sure, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When they had those little rubber, I don't know.
The protectors.
I'm 45, so some people think I'm younger than I am, which I
Right.
thank you for those people who think. You know, I
Yeah.
got carded the other day. Where was it? I was like at a Japanese barbecue restaurant, and I got a bottle of sake, and she goes, "Let me see your ID." And I go, "Really?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "You know, the drinking age is 21, right?" And she looked at it and she goes, "No way." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 45." And she was just like, "Wow, okay." I was like, "It's all this sake I'm drinking."
Was she Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah, Asian people are like wild out by when they see how old I am. I'll be 44 this fall.
Oh yeah, so we're
So
like the same age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it's just really
We're
funny.
doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing all right for white guys.
See
Um,
how we're doing in our 70s if we, if we get there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's really funny. Yeah, with the case guard on the Swatch, man, that brings back memories. I always had like a hot pink one. It was like fuchsia.
Yeah, you could get, I mean, back then, it was also the 80s, right? So like
Yeah,
it was like neon and extreme and
yeah,
you know, I hate to say like, I feel like the old guy, but like I really do miss that era of like the mid to late 80s was just so cool. There was no, this is amazing, right? We can talk and see each other and like that's amazing technology. Even back then you'd be like there's no way that's ever going to happen. Like a cell phone that can like watch movies, what? But it really has disconnected people in a lot of ways.
yeah. Well,
People
I
have a hard time just socializing.
I totally agree with you. And I also think this is kind of a full circle moment of this conversation in a way, because in the 80s, you could discover things that were new, right? Like everything's been done now. So, like to your earlier point of finding something new in the drum kit, the 80s was full of new. It was new styles. It was bike shorts by Andre Agassi under his like tennis shorts. Like all that shit didn't exist before, like, and it was sick. It was all cool. Now it looks ridiculous on TV with the mullet and such, but like Agassi's Agassi and will always remain that guy. And even still, like new styles of Nike, like, yes, Nike's coming out with like new product and like the soles are changing and now they have marathon running shoes that you can only wear once and like stuff like that. But like,
but
It's
like
good
it's
marketing
just
for them.
yeah, no, 100%.
Got to keep buying them.
Yes. Yeah, especially at $200 a pop or 250 or whatever they are. But yeah, but I think that's part of it, Like, and I think like the sense of exploration, the sense of new and like discovery, and I think that's how my brain works, and I'm sure it does for yours as well, being a musician. Like hearing something for the first time is like that's got to be what gets you up in the morning, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, or just it could be a little thing, and you're just like, oh, I could expand on that, or like it's just that
Yeah.
all it takes is that one little spark, and you're like, oh, got it.
Yeah. It's the same in watches or cars or anything else, but especially
What
watches.
I love about this one actually is like it's a this design has kind of been done, but the way that Ferrer uses the proportions of the lugs and the bezel and just the subtle color changes they do,
Right.
they always crush it with the Paul sends me a lot of the early sketches of like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Like every watch that's come out basically since they started, I've known about 6 months before they come out.
Now, how did that relationship start?
I met Paul at a watch fair, like one of the, I think it might have been the first or second wind up when it was at, was it the Chelsea Market? And I went down between shows, Lion King shows on like a Saturday. And I was like, oh, I had bought my wife when I got Lion King, right when I got into like automatic watches. And I was like, oh, this is a whole world that I do not know about. And
Yeah.
my wife bought me a Zinn UTC, like GMT kind of like Spitfire kind of watch.
Sick.
And it's great. I still have it. It's a great watch. And she overnighted it to me to the house so we could go to brunch and she could give it to me and say congratulations on getting the chair at Lion King. It was super cool.
Wait, so how did she land on Zen? I mean, that's like even now, that's like for the real heads.
No, that's what I wanted to buy for myself.
Okay.
Somehow she saw it on my computer, or maybe I mentioned it to her, said like, hey, this is a really cool watch, I think I might buy it. But I think it was 1,400, 1,500 bucks, and to me at the time I was like, that's crazy for a watch.
Yeah.
Then you see like shit that Mayer has and it's like, oh, that watch is $1 million.
Right. Right.
Like so expensive watches, people think a $50 watch is expensive,
Right.
and it's just
Yeah.
this huge zone. So she was really cool and paid attention and got me that. So I had that was my only watch. And then I went to the watch fair. I go up, I was walking around all the booths looking at everybody's stuff, and I kept coming back to Ferrer. And they only had two models. They had the Beagle, which was like a white one, and then one or two others. And one of the other watches, the name of the watch was Carter.
Oh, of course.
It was called the Carter. And I didn't know that yet. But I talked to Paul, who I didn't know was one of the owners, and I was just like, hey, these are really beautiful designs. I love your dials and the use of color, and it just seems really cool. And I was like, he goes, well, what brought you in here on Saturday? I said, well, I'm in between shows. And he goes, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a drummer. I play on the Lion King on Broadway. And he's like, oh, that's crazy. I used to play the drums a lot when I was younger. And I was just like, oh, no way. So we start talking drums and like, oh, I was working on this signature snare and da da da. And he starts going like, oh, wow, you got a lot of drummers following you. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a drummer.
And literally, I saw his brain go like, doot, 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 doot. And then he goes, do you want to be our U.S. brand ambassador?
Wow.
Like within 5 minutes of talking to him. And I just said, yes, yes, whatever it is. Yes. Whatever I want, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it.
That's sick.
And he said, all right, take our catalog, pick out what watch you want, and I'll have it overnighted to you tomorrow.
So,
People talk a lot, right, in New York City. And I was like, I don't know if this is for real. He seemed like a genuine great guy. And we had a really nice talk. And so I messaged him and I said, yeah, this is the one I'd love. And literally that night I got a FedEx tracking number from the UK. And I was like, holy shit, this is a real deal.
that's unreal. What did you ever find out why it was named the Carter?
It was some like, just like discoverer, adventurer named whatever. I'm going to make up a name like Stephen Carter on the boat of da 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 in 1822, and that's
Okay.
what they get a lot of their names from adventurers and like people that have like done crazy shit. They'll name the watches after like this is called the Carnegie, and I'm not going to even pretend like I know why it's the Carnegie, but I'm sure there's a cool and they're always cool stories, you know.
That's cool.
But I've been
What
with them that for a long time.
Yeah.
They're great.
What was your first car?
Oh man, it was we nicknamed it the Black Beauty. It was a 1984 Chevy Malibu station wagon,
Yes.
basically straight out of Chevy Chase's vacation car. It was that big ass long car. It had wood panels and it was black and had maroon interior. and they drove it into the ground. Then they gave it to my brother for 2 years when he turned 16. And then he drove it literally into the ground. And then he let me basically take it over when he went off to college and I could drive. And that car, you would turn the steering wheel, and about a second and a half later, it would start to go.
Oh man, that's amazing. That burgundy interior, maroon, was it vinyl?
No, it was like this weird feeling, like
Like
almost like
felt?
felt. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
felt.
yeah.
Oh man, my Ford Taurus had the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, that car took a serious beat down. I mean, we treated that car like absolute shit, and it kept running.
Oh man, like a rental. I love it.
It was great.
What's your daily driver now?
I have a Model 3 Tesla.
Okay. Cool. Nice.
I got it because I had an X4 BMW that I loved. I always was a Jeep Cherokee guy when I was in Colorado because I'd throw skis and drums, and that car would just take a beat down. Um,
I had a Jeep Cherokee too.
This
they're
is so
great.
crazy.
They're
Yeah.
great cars. I mean, like everyone in Colorado had either an Outback or a Jeep Cherokee.
Totally. Yeah.
And it was great. And then when I got the gig at Lion King, I was like, you know what? I want to get like I'm gonna lease like a nice car. I've never really been into cars, but I want to check out some other stuff. So I went to the BMW dealership, and they had an X4 that was gray, that was brand new. I think it had 3 miles on it.
Wow.
And I just said, fuck it, I want that car. I was like, I want that one. And they were like, great, here's the lease. And I was like, all right. And it's probably the worst thing to do is like just boom off the dealer floor, lease it. But I was like, I don't care. And that car was incredible, like beautiful car.
Mm.
Drove really, really well. Was great in the snow. And then the lease was up, and Tesla Model 3 came out, and they were doing this crazy like 13,000 off in like government and state rebates.
Right. Right.
So I was like, man, that car is, it's going to be like 50 grand or something after the rebates. I was like, I'm going to try to get one of those. So I got on the list and got one.
Nice.
Yeah, I test drove one of the first ones they had in New York City and drove it on the West Side Highway for like 2 blocks and just pulled over. I just turned around and said, yeah, I'll take it. This is ridiculous.
That's great.
And Paul at Fair hates Teslas. Every time I say him, like, man, the Tesla's feeling great these days. He's like, stop, stop. It's not a real automobile. Please stop.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh man, that's so funny. All right, well, we're wrapping up here, obviously, but what's the last thing you did for the very first time?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. The last thing I did for the very first time, man, that's a tough question. Well, I guess it's like an ongoing thing that's recent. There's
Okay.
been all these baby robins being born around our property, like one right outside, like a robin's nest right outside our front door. Then there's one in our rose garden. And so last year, I remember seeing them, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. They were eggs, and now like 2 days later, there's like baby birds with feathers. Like it happens so fast. So I've kind of become like this bird caretaker. So like when they fall out of the nests when they're fledgling, if you leave them, they're gone. They're gonna be dead on the ground because they
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
fly and something will get them. And so I've been like getting them off the ground when they fall, putting them back in the nest, and they all fly out now. They all live.
Amazing, man. Was it or is it ornithology? Is that what it's called? A bird? I think it's
Technology is also, I think, a Ornette Coleman album.
Ah, okay. So a little pun.
To look that up, I could be
Yeah.
wrong, and all the jazz geeks would be like, "That's not right."
Right.
But it's really cool, man. Like there's another round. So I kind of helped two nests, and all three of the babies made it, and I watched one of them fly out for the first time, which is really kind of satisfying.
Right.
And then another nest that was there before, another bird came back and laid 3 eggs in it. And so
Got
they
it.
just hatched like 2 days ago, and I check on them every morning and make sure they're cool. But it is cool. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it's like, it's everything nowadays is on a phone and very digital and very like just man-made. It's
Dude,
really cool to see in like a week go from like a robin's egg to a bird with wings and like
right.
feathers, and it like flies away.
Yeah. I was bitching to my wife the other day about how like how lame it is that like our water filter has a green light that blinks just to let you know that it's time to change the filter. Like, yes, it's extremely convenient, but it's over. Like, do we really need this much technology? Like everywhere we turn, it drives me crazy. But
Yeah,
anyway,
everything's a little bit too safety padded out with helmets these days.
that's hilarious. Um, you posted "Let's Go Ricky" during the U.S. Open. I saw. Are you a golf fan?
Oh, huge golfer. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, love playing golf. I actually
My
want to get out to play Pebble Beach and Spyglass and stuff.
Dude, I was having this conversation yesterday. Let's do it. I mean, I don't know if you're looking for playing partners, but I'll happily invite myself.
Ronnie Benucci has he has a house out that way, and he was like, "Dude, you got to come out and we got to hang and like we'll go play." I was like, "Okay."
Well, and anytime you want to come to San Diego and play Torrey Pines, I'll get us on easy. Like, actually, yeah, that's almost like my local course at this point.
That's
Like,
nice.
yeah, no, come out, dude. Guest room's ready for you. And I just took VJ, the CEO of Oris, there last week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, dude, anytime you want, just come on out.
What do you shoot? You sound like you're a good golfer.
Well, that's funny. My next post on Instagram after we get off of this is a golf post, actually, because I just played Bandon Dunes in Oregon.
Oh wow, yeah, that place
Yeah.
looks incredible.
Anyway, I've been sharing this road trip I went on 2 weeks ago, last week or whatever. Um, I'm on paper, I'm a 4 handicap, but like, but I probably play more like a 6, like, I don't know, something like that. Single digit, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not gonna feel bad for you if you're a 7 or an 8 or a 9.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
that's all great. My average score, like real score, is like 85. I shot 78 twice,
That's great.
but like it's all putting. Like
I
I
was
can
just
bomb the shit out of it. I hit a drive the other day. Actually, I played up in Nantucket, and I just connected with the ball. You know when you hit one and you just literally feel like you didn't even touch the golf ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're swinging to air. Yep.
It was a par five. I hit it 340.
Holy shit.
My wife was in the cart and we had the reader, and she was like, "That was really far. How far was that?" And I looked at the thing, calculated it. So it was a par five. I hit it 340. Then I had a wedge. I had about 120 to the cup. Wedged it to about 10 feet. Missed a 10-foot eagle putt
Oh,
and had about a 6-inch birdie putt.
that's such a good feeling, even though that was such like a deflating moment, I'm sure, to miss the eagle. Like I
I've
know the
never
feeling
had an
too
eagle.
well. Oh, really? Okay.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, this is my time.
Right. Right.
This is the $1 million putt. And it's just like,
Right.
nope. I left it short.
Or is
What's
that
your
just-
take on the live PGA thing?
I think it's great for the sport. I think it's only going to help the sport. Money always helps industry, right? So there's that. I hate the way that it unfolded. I feel awful for Rory and the people who, like, you know, they were all sort of coached away from doing something only to be, you know, the rug gets swept out from under them. I think it was bullshit.
That pissed me off more than like
Yeah, exactly.
live starting their own thing.
Right,
They were like,
exactly.
here's the deal. We're going to pay you $300 million if you want to do it. If you don't, cool. And then a few months later, they're like, just kidding. We're going to actually work with these guys. Sorry, you guys missed out on $300 million.
You know, it's insane too, because my friend works in marketing for Live now. She'd been working there for like 8, 9 months. And when all this was unfolding, I like literally hit her up and I was like, what's going on? She goes, your guess is as good as mine. I'm finding out information just like you are. So I don't even know if I'll have a job in 6 months. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, so that was kind of nutty. But yeah, dude, I could talk golf all day. Like, I'm actually due for a new driver. Like, I'm like waiting on the phone call and I'm just like itching and scratching, you know?
Nice.
Well, dude, this has been great. Thanks for the time, Carter. And it's great to see you, man. Yeah. But hope to connect in October, hopefully.
Yeah,
One
let
way
me
or-
know when this will be coming out, and I'll do like a little screenshot and post it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it'll probably be maybe beginning of September. Because
Okay.
we're kind of closing in on the end of July already. All right, dude. Well, I'll let you go. Listen, have a great show tonight. And, you know, really appreciate it again.
Yeah, of course. It was good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Okay, buddy. I'm going to check out that fair right now.
Yeah, it's a great watch.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man. See ya.
Later.
This wraps up this episode of the Standard Age podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.